Hi everyone, today I'm watching Twin Peaks and I'm going to be watching season 2 episode 18 called Masked Ball. It was directed by Wayne Dunham and written by Barry Pullman. Okay, so a very upbeat start to the episode. I think that music is very like 1950s kind of jazz. James leaving town like this I think is true to his character. I think he is the kind of guy that, you know, would want to kind of hit the road and get that sense of freedom from his problems, from everything that he has been experiencing with Donna, and he's trying to look for an escape, a way to forget. Okay, so this conversation with Betty, with Sheriff Truman and Cooper, she seems like a different lady to the one we saw in season 1 dealing with Bobby, and I think maybe previously we saw what life was like from Bobby's perspective maybe, but now we see what life is like for the Briggs family through the eyes of Betty. You know, she seems like a very understanding and patient woman who has had to deal with these strange classified activities that her husband has been doing for a long time, and you get the sense that this has been somewhat difficult for her, that she has the nobility to have been able to deal with that. And I think it's interesting the way that when she says that Major Briggs talks about them all the time, she kind of has a smile on her face as if that she knows that this is one of Major Briggs's passions and that he is very animated by contact with them. I would align that to what he said in the last episode in regards to him mentioning the White Lodge. Okay, so I think that when Gordon Cole rings Cooper at the sheriff's station, I've always felt that this is David Lynch's way of letting the audience know that he might not be around for a while, and that he's giving his full support to the cast and crew. Maybe this is just coincidence that his character has to say these lines to Coop about the investigation into Cooper, but it does seem a little strange that, you know, David Lynch kind of checks out and leaves the series to other directors at this moment. Gordon Cole implies that maybe he has been investigated as well at some point in the past, which doesn't surprise me considering what he did in Fire Walk With Me with bringing in Lil and things like that. I mean, that would be completely unconventional under normal arrangements. And I really like this scene where Cooper says it's time to face the music and he looks directly at the camera. It feels like he's connecting to the audience and sort of pleading with the audience for support maybe.
Agent Cooper, it's showtime. You've heard the charges.
He should use that in the upcoming Showtime adverts, the commercials. Yeah, Agent Cooper, it's showtime. That's pretty funny. Oh my, look at this computer. It's huge.
Full psychological book. Thanks for your candor, Roger.
Cooper is very forthright with the board of investigators who are looking into the case against him. However, he veers off the course by starting to talk about his spiritual experience since he came to Twin Peaks, and it's clear how much he has been affected and the changes that have occurred to his character since he came to Twin Peaks. He has become the man, I think, or is still becoming the man he always was, delving deeper into his soul and finding that deep love that he talks about. And I think that his experiences with the people of Twin Peaks, but also with the physical environment of Twin Peaks, you know, he talks about the wind through the trees, and you do get the sense that he has really found somewhere he thinks is sort of like a sanctuary, no matter what bad things have happened there, that he is recognizing the goodness and the love in Twin Peaks. So Nadine in school is very strange. I mean, it takes the idea of, you know, mentally ill people, sometimes they lose insight into what their behaviour is like and what they are doing and whether they are mentally ill or not. And Nadine seems to be completely oblivious to the state that she's in mentally. Okay, James is back on the bike, riding, even though he doesn't actually seem to have gone very far. But he seems to have been on the road for a long time. So we meet this glamorous older woman, Evelyn. And I really like the conversation that they initially have. When James says, "I'm only quiet on the outside," I think that's a fine line to sum up his character. I think he's a very deep thinker, James, and clearly very sensitive guy. But I like the fact that there's a bit of recognition with that. Just as he's left Twin Peaks, it's maybe the beginning of sort of a self-discovery thing, you know, because he might be realizing that external quietness is not really an asset to him all the time. And you do get the sense that when he's leaning against the jukebox like that he has a very disturbed mind at the moment, dealing with all the stuff with Madeline and Laura too, and Harold and Donna and Nadine. And I think that he is in a place where it's kind of like a whirlwind of thoughts that he's trying to block out. But okay, so the start of the little Nikki storyline shows us that I think Andy has better fathering qualities than Dick. So Hawk has this very interesting explanation of the White Lodge and the Black Lodge. We already know that Major Briggs is familiar with the White Lodge. The Black Lodge sounds like a place of terror and deep danger. Yeah, I think you get the sense from this scene that Agent Cooper will eventually have to face this kind of ultimate courage. It's like a framing, a foreshadowing. Denise Bryson, A Sight for Sore Eyes. I recently discovered that this part actually had been written with James Spader in mind. I mean, can you imagine that? James Spader, he would have looked so good. But I will take David Duchovny, looking pretty hot as a woman. I like Hawk's reaction, not sure how to take Denise. You get the sense that with Harry and Josie, there's a very physical aspect to their relationship. You know, there is. Josie is such a sensual woman. I think that she is like, you know, the perfect woman sort of thing in terms of physicality and beauty and femininity. And I think that Harry seems almost like he's under a spell when he's around Josie. And I think Josie's story, it's pretty sad and makes you feel for the character a little more than perhaps you might have done given her history of kind of manipulating and the things that she, you know, you never quite were sure whether she was totally upfront about everything and whether she was doing everything legitimately or whether she was a schemer and a liar. But when she tells this story about her life and the things she's had to go through with men and with her cultural upbringing, it makes you, I mean, it makes you have sympathy towards her character a little bit more. Hank comes into the diner with Bernie and he's a complete asshole. I'm so sorry, but he is the way he, you know, poor Norma has to deal with that, with knowing what he, you know, potentially what he might have been doing, and she's just like a doormat to him. I mean, what a scumbag. Okay, it's quite slapstick humour, that this stuff with little Nicky and his behavioural problems, but it is quite funny. James and Evelyn are talking, and the way James is talking about being on his bike in the middle of the night and just driving quickly into the darkness, you get the sense that this is kind of a metaphor for like him wanting to go forth on some kind of spiritual exploration, I think. Whilst I like the stuff with James and his self-discovery, I think that the storyline with Evelyn is a little bit boring. I don't think Evelyn is remotely interesting as a character in Twin Peaks. She is not likable. To me, she's not likable. She is not interesting. She is kind of sensual, but not enough. I mean, you know, this union doesn't really titillate me, you know what I mean? If that's the point of it, it does nothing. It does nothing to me. It, you know, when you watch Harry with Josie, it's kind of romantic, and you get the sense, you really feel that they love each other there, and that there is that kind of sexual fire. But with James and Evelyn, it really falls flat for me. Okay, so we see the first signs of Ben Horne going completely nuts. He explains this in the first scene. We see him telling us how, you know, his troubles and worries over the past couple of days, which have led him into this state of confusion and anxiety. You get the sense that everything that Ben Horne has built up, his reputation, his businesses, his contacts and associates, they've all just crumbled like a house of cards. And who the hell is he now? And he kind of devolves into this childish figure towards the end of that scene, returning to his childhood in a similar way that Nadine has done. So we get an introduction to Windom Earle in this episode, hearing his voice on the tape that he sent to Cooper. He is very verbose and very clearly a very intelligent man. This story that he tells to Dale is full of metaphors and hidden meanings. It sounds like a fairy tale, and it sounds like this is a guy who is very clever, and I think you get the sense from this scene straight away that he is going to be a competent foe for Cooper. You do get the sense, of course, that because it's so much like a fairy tale what he says, that this guy is on the edge of understanding what reality is, and that perhaps he has fallen into some state of fantasy and of living out his fantasies in a very dangerous way. And it's clear from Dale's face, the expression that he has after he hears this challenge by Windom Earle, that he is very scared. You kind of get the sense that there is a lot of history between them, and that these men were close at some time, and that they have been through a lot together beforehand, and that Dale knows exactly what kind of things Windom Earle will be willing to do, and it's not good. I like that Denise explains the history of why she changed from Dennis to Denise and how that came about. and I think it's an interesting story. I think she's very open about it. I don't know, I think that today, I mean at the time, this felt brand new, with characters who are transgender being portrayed, you know. Yeah, there's humor in the reactions of people dealing with Denise, but I think that nowadays the way that we look at transgender characters has completely changed. And I think it's very interesting that Denise has lines like "boys will be boys," and that, you know, her perspective has changed. Denise was certainly one of the most interesting characters in the second part of season 2. Okay, so we see Josie speak to Catherine about her predicament, and basically what Catherine says to her, you kind of don't know if Josie deserves this kind of treatment because of her wrongdoings, despite the fact that she has this very sad story where she, you know, she had to do things to help herself, and these were bad things. She did them nonetheless. What kind of punishment that she should receive for this? Josie seems like an eternal survivor. I think she will do anything to just keep going. That includes degrading herself. Yes, on one hand I feel pity for Josie, on the other hand I think that she is not blameless. She has a dark side and a light side. But when Andrew comes out and talks with Catherine, let me just say that I love this actor, Dan O'Hurley. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. That's one of my favorite movies. It's really that's a movie that's been totally like lambasted by Halloween fans, but it's one of my favorites and he's in it, and it's very distasteful to see Catherine and Andrew talk about Josie like this. Okay, so that is the end of the episode when Catherine and Andrew talk. We have this very nostalgic ending to this episode as well, with the footage from Ben's childhood, and it's a very touching end actually. I'm not quite sure why they use that ending. Maybe to signify that the show is going in a slightly different direction. I thought that episode was okay. There's a lot of new characters that appear in that episode, a lot of different storylines going on. I think they are building, in this episode we see a lot of building of characters, and I like the stuff with James because I think he's an interesting character, but as I say, I don't think that Evelyn is I don't think his involvement with Evelyn is very interesting, but I think his journey is more interesting to me, as someone who likes the character of James. Seeing more of Andy, I think that it's nice that they expanded on this fathering story with him and Dick. The kind of humor we see with the little Nicky storyline does kind of remind me of there was this series that I think Lynch and Frost did. I don't know if they did it after Twin Peaks. It was called On the Air. You might be able to catch a little bit of it on YouTube if you've never heard of that, but it was full-on comedy, slapstick, very odd comedy, and I feel that the little Nicky storyline and also maybe the Lana stuff, maybe even like where Nadine goes this season, it's very similar to On the Air. What can I say? If you think about like back to like the pilot episode of Twin Peaks and the following episodes, and then compare it to the episode that I've just watched, episode 18, I think that the difference in tone and everything is so obvious, you know. It's but then again, when you come to point in a series where you have to make a big reveal and start over, to have to keep up that dramatic air, I think must be quite difficult. I just think that at this point in time the series is in a difficult place with having had to make that big reveal and also having to bring in some new characters to expand some storylines and to open up the show. Especially it feels odd because it's the middle of the series, the middle of the season. I really like the stuff with Cooper though. I think that Cooper remains the most interesting and lovable character on Twin Peaks, and he is a character that you want to support. You get a real strong sense of who Cooper is and the choices he would make in any given situation, whereas I think with other characters that distinction is a little bit blurred. Anyway, that's the end of the episode. I'm going to keep rewatching until the end of season 2 and giving my comments about each episode, so if you want to join me for that, please do so. And thank you for watching today, and you can follow me on Twitter if you like at @TheLogSadie, and I'm also on Facebook. Goodbye.